Albert Camus, mid-20th century French philosopher, writer, Nobel Prize winner, once said, "Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me. Just be my friend." I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 17, Chapter 3,
Canada.
The Adult in the Room. I chose the Camus quote because I feel it best describes Canada's role in international politics. We are there to walk beside you and be your friend. I know that we are leaders in some areas, followers in others, but overall, we don't really look to take over. We certainly are not subservient. We walk beside. We are part of the G7, the G20, the Five Eyes, the UN, NORAD, NATO, the WTO, the IMF, the Commonwealth of Nations. We're partners at the International Space Station. We have signed on to 15 international free trade agreements and are members in good standing of the Katy Perry fan club. Well, that last one may not be official. There's even recent talk of us joining the EU. Imagine. We are team players. Walk with us. Note that among almost 200 world nations, Canada's economy consistently places in the top 10. Currently, we're number 9, just ahead of Brazil. When you look at that top 10 and you take out Brazil, China, and India, the remaining countries are in something called the G7. Canada, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Japan. Yeah, they experimented with the G8 that included Russia, and that was suspended in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. As we know, that got even worse, as did the Russian economy. In the G7, 5 members are currently being run by what could be called liberal democratic government. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's party has roots in fascism, but she recently denounced Italy's fascist past and emphasized her commitment to democracy. We'll see. Germany, France, and the UK, like much of Europe, are battling powerful far-right factions. And the USA, well, that's Donald Trump. As abhorrent a topic as that may be, it must not be ignored. Trump's second term in office at the time of this recording is not even 6 months old. In this short time, he has already compromised many pillars of American democracy by using questionable presidential power to cripple the education system, health care, the judicial system, and the free press. Not to mention using their own hegemony as a bargaining chip in world affairs, including military support, and cutting the so-called soft power initiatives by deleting much-needed humanitarian aid to millions of people. Trump has dismantled the Department of Education. He's also attacked post-secondary institutions like Columbia and Harvard, promising to cut off government funding, implying that these universities and colleges are sowing the seeds of un-American discontent and turmoil. He has had books banned from libraries, many of them telling stories of the struggles of Black America. He has fired several members of the U.S. Memorial Holocaust Council, including Doug Emhoff, the husband of Kamala Harris. He appointed himself head of the Kennedy Center, railing against content that he says drives the leftist woke agenda. He appointed RFK Jr. in charge of Health and Human Services, who in turn fired an entire vaccine division within the CDC. He has introduced something called the Big Beautiful Bill that would actually kill health care for millions of Americans while providing tax breaks for billionaires. Trump, through an executive order, threatened lawyers and law firms who worked against him with bans from federal buildings, meaning many of these firms would not be allowed in courtrooms. How do you be an effective lawyer if you're not allowed in court? The caveat was that these law firms had to do hundreds of millions of dollars of pro bono work for his administration. Many of the firms acquiesced. This shakes the very foundation of American justice. He's filed dozens of media lawsuits and threatened to pull broadcast licenses. especially of those he deemed had unfair coverage of him. Many of the larger outlets settled out of court for millions of dollars that go into Trump's personal bank account. This has led to journalists resigning, awkward network memos from top executives at the Disney-owned ABC network and the Paramount-run CBS. He appointed his largest campaign contributor, Elon Musk, as head of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which then indiscriminately fired thousands of federal workers. Trump himself fired 17 inspectors general across various cabinet departments. These are the very people who keep track of efficiency in government. He sent American troops into Los Angeles and threatened to arrest California's duly elected governor. This after protesters objected to random ICE agent raids around their city. Not to mention, he has thrown the world economy into a tailspin with a tariff policy that no one outside the Trump sycophants thinks is a good idea. All this while calling it the Gulf of America, threatening to take over Greenland, and taunting Canada as a U.S. 51st state.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Quite the list of accomplishments in the first 100 or so days in office. Since he took the oath, Americans have less freedom, less truth, less future. They pay more for goods and services and are much less respected around the world, if that even matters anymore. This is the main reason Canada now has to be the adult in the room. 'Cause, again, aside from the heavily populated countries of China and India, the most powerful economies in the world are the G7. Among the G7, Canada's economy is 7th. Our population size, 7th. Our military strength, well, near the bottom. So how is it that Canada is expected now to be the adult in the room? It's complicated. There's a few reasons, I guess. First one, Mark Carney. This is our new prime minister. He's ran 2 different national banks. Respected financial guy. Liberal Democrat. He already knows all the other people involved. Already has all their numbers on his phone. This is partly how he got elected, if not mostly. Think about this. Rarely has foreign policy been such a major election issue in Canada.
Threats from a more dangerous and divided world are unraveling the rules-based international order. An order that was fused by the settlements at the end of the Second World War and the end of the Cold War, an order on which Canada has relied for longer than many of our lifetimes. And while the consequences of these developments are profound, we have agency. We have agency in determining what comes next.
Normally, we're listening to candidates tell us about what they can do in our country, not at the world stage, except now. It's a different world. We need someone we can actually picture being able to hobnob at these international events, holding his own against the rest. We couldn't picture the other leaders doing that, could we? Only Carney. And that's all because of Trump, by the way. He's the, I was going to say disruptor, but you can't really say disruptor. He fancies himself as a disruptor. A disruptor might be a kid who's constantly begging the teacher to make recess longer. Trump is the kid in the playground who takes the soccer ball and throws it over the fence onto the street. It's not a disruptor. That's just an asshole. Carney is our guy. The adult in the room. I guess that could have also been Justin Trudeau. I mean, he was that guy for almost a decade. I'm still not sure how exactly he became such a divisive character. Oh well, that's done. That's the past. Maybe history will be kinder to him than we were. The other reason Canada is the new adult in the room expected to lead is location, location, location. The United States is the most powerful member of the G7, currently being run by a lunatic. The other members are 4 countries in Europe and an island in the Pacific. We're right here. We're dealing with our neighbor every day. And we can't just pick up and move across town to a new neighborhood. Barring the eruption of some previously unknown gigantic seismic fault that cuts us loose right along the 49th parallel and sets us adrift toward Europe or Asia, we're stuck here. As Robin Williams once said, "Canada, you have a nice place. Too bad you live above a biker bar." There's variations of it. Nice apartment. Too bad you live over a meth lab. Who knows if he actually said any of it. But you get the point. These are the neighbors. We can't move. Did you know approximately 90% of the Canadian population live within an hour's drive of the United States? Depending on traffic. Your mileage may vary. Within the G7, we are the largest country by area, land mass. Yet most of us live in that area at the bottom of the Canadian map. We need to be only an hour away from pimento cheese spread, goo-goo clusters, and, A&W cream soda. Little known fact, or at least not that often cited, while 90% of Canadians live within an hour of the American border, almost 2/3 of Americans live within 100 miles of the Canadian border. That's over 200 million people. This is part of the reason we're so intertwined. That's why a trade and tariff war is so ludicrous. When Trump threw down those tariffs, people immediately said, well, we should expand our trade with other countries. What other countries? As I pointed out earlier, we already have 15 international trade agreements. So what happens is we make something, we put it on a truck, and we drive it for an hour south. That's international trade. What is the alternative? Drive 2 days to the coast, load it on a ship, a week at sea, unload it, put it on another truck. Well, that just may be a little more expensive. They say a car part can go back and forth across the U.S.-Canada border up to 8 times before it starts to resemble something that's a car. Imagine if we were doing that with Canada and, say, Japan. It would take years to make a car. Anyway, that is our geographic lot in life. Stuck to our neighbor. But who better to keep an eye on them as they go through their crises? So that's it. I guess we do have the apartment above the meth lab. But, we have a reliable super now, and the rest of the neighborhood is kind of counting on us to restore order.
Let me stress that there can be no true security without economic prosperity. And that's one of the many reasons why so much of the energies of Canada's new government is dedicated and will be dedicated to transforming our economy to become the strongest in the G7. If we want a more reliable world, we need a stronger Canada.
As the U.S. becomes more and more unreliable, we will increase our trade with the UK and the EU and South America, the Pacific Rim, ASEAN nations, and so forth. And we got lots of space. Not all of it has the critical infrastructure to maintain a community, a population, but that can be built. We've got the land. We've got a lot of natural resources, including these rare earth minerals needed to power the future. And for the most part, we're politically stable. We understand the value of playing nice. Walk with us. This makes us the only G7 nation to check all those boxes, which also means more and more the world will want to beat a path to our door. And they have been. We just got to make sure we're ready for it. There is one thing though, right? The military power. Given the state of the world, nations have to have a military power. Because if not, you have to be able to have a relationship with the world police. USA. Well, not so fast. Recently, Ukraine sent a few dozen drones worth literally hundreds of dollars apiece. 3,000 miles across Russia, low-flying and undetectable by conventional radar. And they blew up hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Russian aircraft just sitting at an airbase. And they even sent back the video of it happening. Conversely, the U.S. gave Ukraine 31 top-of-the-line Abrams tanks. These are worth $10 million each. Almost all of them now rendered useless by cheap Russian drones, those built for only a few rubles apiece. The days of man-mechanized warfare are done. Massive fighter jets, battleships, submarines. Oh, they're awesome, impressive, lethal. But the battles are now with these inexpensive, critical precision drones. And they use GPS, just like your Camry. Yeah, sure, there's the ethics. Machines taking over. The robot Terminator apocalypse. That's fair enough, but that's not the future. It's the present. Check out a book called Unit X, co-written by Christopher Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff is a military strategist. He has just helped the Pentagon open an office in Silicon Valley. Kirchhoff cites the F-35 fighter jet. This is the one Canada is still arguing about. We ordered them, they're not coming, they're still coming, we need more money. From drawing board to operational in the sky. For the F-35, it took 16 years, from 2000 to 2016. By the time the pilots were playing Top Gun in the sky with the F-35, the plane had a 16-year-old processor in it. In 2016, the iPhone 7 came out with a processor that was 100 times faster than the one in the F-35. The gap between private tech and military tech is huge, and it must be closed quickly. Nations can no longer spend billions and billions on an aircraft carrier hoping the thing will last 50 years. Because that guy over there with the $1,000 drone could take it out in minutes. Donald Trump can stage the biggest Soviet-style military parade up and down Pennsylvania Avenue that he wants. But I hope he realizes that a few well-programmed drones from downtown L.A. could quickly turn it into one big smoldering mess in minutes and provide its own footage for CNN. I bring this up because Mark Carney recently announced a new Canadian government investment in our military.
Canada's new government is tabling what's called supplementary estimates. They include our plan to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Crazy, huh? Aren't the Liberals usually the ones protesting the military? Preaching peace, love, and understanding? We're putting our flowers in the rifle barrels? Yeah, well, not anymore. It's a new world. Canada, for its relative population size and investment in military, if spent wisely, could potentially take on any giant. You know, the way Ukraine is taking on Russia. The way David slew Goliath. You know, Goliath had armor and a shield and a sword. Not to mention, he was a Goliath. All David had was precision. A stone right to the forehead. Knocked him on his ass. And then David just took Goliath's sword and beheaded him. Incidentally, in 1022 BC, beheading was the leading cause of death among young males. Yeah, it went beheading, smoking, and driving a chariot after consuming mead. But beheading was number one. I will grant you that a lot of Canada's military equipment is in sad need of upgrades. But if we're not careful, we're going to spend billions on weaponry that will be obsolete upon delivery. So this is Canada's unique position. We can be large and in charge. Economically and socially, we're already pretty good, and soon possibly even militarily. And we are the adult in the room. Hey, you already know how I feel about geopolitical borders, designed to divide the human race, pit us against each other. But also, hey, if we're going to be a country, I guess we could be number one. We could be the adult in the room. We've walked beside all those other people for decades. Maybe we're finally ready to take that one big giant step ahead and lead for a while.
The United States is beginning to monetize its hegemony, charging for access to its markets and reducing its relative contribution to our collective security. In parallel, the world's trade routes, allegiances, energy systems, and even intelligence itself are being rewired. A new imperialism threatens. Middle powers must compete for interests and attention, knowing that if they're not at the table, they're on the menu. A more confident, united Canada, a stronger Canada, can help transform this age of disorder into an era of prosperity for all Canadians.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.